Hello and welcome to the Tournament Poker Project. From Essex, my name's Jon.
And I'm Tain.
And this is our journey, our learning journey to master Texas No Limit Hold'em and get good enough and get a big enough bankroll to go and play in the World Series of Poker. We're not professionals. We are recreational players. So all the stuff we talk about, all the theories we talk about, take them with a pinch of salt. We've been doing a lot of reading, a fair bit of studying, and we've been at this for coming up a year now. So, we're not completely making it up, but yeah, please don't sue us if you take our advice and then lose a massive poker tournament, or we don't pretend to know it all. We will be analysing hands today, but before we get into it, what's been going on?
Yeah, how you been doing? You've been
I'm all right.
playing much?
Right. Yeah, I've been playing on the DTO a lot that you alerted me to. That's been really good. Just fitting that in, even if it's just 5-10 minutes a day, it's just a really cool way to learn. I just find it nice because it feels like you're playing poker, which you kind of are, but then it will just obviously tell you if you're deviating from what GTO says you should be doing. So I'll do a hand and then I'll maybe get a few right, and then I'll get something wrong, and then I'll always click on the the evaluation thing, like why is that? It tells you basically that some reasons why you should have done such and such. So yeah, I've been doing a bit of that. I've played a few sit and goes, played a few tournaments. It's going pretty well. I've bankroll. I mean, I had to top up, didn't I, a while back? I put I only ever put like $45 on there. That's my weekly limit. Just because I don't want to get into a silly state of just topping up. So $45. I've spun that up to just over 100 now. So yeah, back in the game, all good. And looking forward to tomorrow. So for our listeners, me and Tain, potentially, depending on how we feel tomorrow, we're going to be heading down to Stratford Aspers Casino and playing in their 110 tournament, multi-table tournament there.
But take a pop.
We're going to take a pop, and it's quite a big buy-in. I think if it was 50 buy-in, we'd probably be happier, or even 30. But it's more to do with it's a Friday, so we've not got work the next day. We've got 2 full-time jobs, each, not each. We've got a full-time job each. So, going to a tournament in the week to get one of these cheaper tournaments, it's just not doable. We can't be finishing up even sort of midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning is too late. We'll be getting home and getting up at 5 in the morning for our work. So yes, it's a little bit more money, but it's an investment. It stops us losing our jobs that pay our wages and pay our mortgages.
Yeah, we had a conversation, didn't we, where I've been trying to stick at the $1 spin and goes and $1 tournaments and that, just because that's where my bankroll is. And I've got it into my mind that I have to be able to smash $1 in order to do anything more. But it's going to take so long to grind up to something.
And not just that, Tain, you asked me, how many times have you gone super deep now? I mean, we're both doing it. We're both going. I mean, I was in that 200 runner tournament last week before, final tabled. It's happening regularly.
Just it's got to that stage where it's like, look, this isn't unaffordable. It's quite a lot of money, but it's not unaffordable. And why not take, essentially, we know it's a pop shot, but we're not bankrolling ourselves for that. It's outside our bankroll. So if we won, I don't know, $2,000 by taking this pop shot, that doesn't become a $2,000 bankroll and we're all of a sudden playing much higher. We'll still play at the right level. And it will just be that we're properly bankrolled to play at a level that we're comfy with, and then any additional profit is either backup or in our back pocket, is how I see it. And it's just basically cheating a little bit, but it's because what's the point in grinding out $1 games when you know your skill levels above it
Well,
and your money can
when-
afford it.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, you got to take a few pots, a few shots, haven't you? You've got to do it, and it's good for your potential, bankroll or whatever. But it's also fun. It's also going to be really fun. We're going to go and play a bigger tournament, and that in mind, what's on your mind about playing in this much bigger buy-in than we used to? What's kind of in your head? You got any fears? You got any ideas about it you want to share?
I don't know. I'm in two minds because I've played quite a few times recently where I've been excessively comfy, even rationalizing when I've lost hands that I shouldn't have. Not shouldn't have. Sorry, that's. But where someone tucked out on you, or it's just a cooler situation. But I've been quite easy about it, as in I understand the game so much now that I enjoy the cooler situations. They're not necessarily nice when you then got to go home and it's been 1 a.m, you've been grinding since 7 o'clock and you come home and you're still empty-handed.
Yeah.
But that's a much bigger thing to deal with for anyone than, oh, I should have won that hand, even though actually it was only 70%. That isn't should have. That is you've got an edge in the hand, and that's all. And rationalising that side of it. But I do worry about drunks. I do worry about bullies. I do worry about imposter syndrome a little bit, but I shouldn't, because
you shouldn't. You're probably better than the majority of the field. Is the truth? And you got to remember that. Like I've played a few of these, slightly bigger ones now, and the times I'm sitting there thinking, well, surely, I feel like I'm going to win his hand, but surely, he's putting all these chips in. He must have me beat. Surely I can't have this hand. Like, he must know something I don't know. And then it turns out, no, he's just going massive with top pair, and you've got 2 pair or whatever, and it's the best hand. And
I mean, I asked in the DTO Discord, just casually, I'm going to £100 game. It's not much above my skill level, but it's definitely the biggest tournament I've funded out of my own back pocket in a single go. What spot shall I practice? And basically the only advice is, look, even though it feels like a big buy-in, because you're playing live, it's not much. The fact that you're using DTO comfortably, you're probably better than most of the field, and that's all you need to worry about. Go in, look after your meta game, look after how your mind is. And
see, I think I've got that in my head. What I need to constantly tell myself and remind myself of is to play normally, right? And to not sit there thinking, yeah, but I've paid £100. I want this experience to last longer, so I'm going to play in a way that prolongs me being at the table, which ends up being basically a really tight evening where I just play too tight. And then I get annoyed that I've played like this tight, stupid game, and then I feel like I've wasted £100. So it's this silly cycle. I need to just go and play normally, and that might mean that I'm out in the first 30 minutes. It might mean that isn't a waste. That isn't more of a waste of 100 than sitting there playing overly tight, and then 2 hours later blinding myself out or near to it. That's what I need to constantly remind myself is go and play your proper game. Once you've bought your chips, you've got your chips, just play your game of poker now. So if I can finally do that, I'll have a good game, regardless of any success.
One of my fears is very closely aligned to that, but rather than play so cautiously that I end up just blinding myself out, it's allowing myself to make a big move that doesn't pay off and feeling I'm well in the mood for poker. So I just go and sit at cash tables, and I can't play cash when I play 1 cent, 2 cent at home. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't play that slow. I can't play that single level. I need all the moving parts that come with a tournament. It fits my ADHD.
I might take an extra buy-in with me. I know it's a lot of dosh, but I might take an extra one.
Late reg.
Hey, Reg.
But
Yeah,
go,
we'll see.
do you want to crack into a hand?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Go.
So, okay, so we've got one up at the moment. This is from a 6-handed multi-table tournament, I take it.
It is. I'm going to say yes. It's unlikely I'm playing a 6-handed sit and go. That's not normally my bag.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah, okay. So
it's a sit and go. It's probably a turbo.
probably a turbo. Yeah. So everyone's got roughly 30 big blinds.
Very early.
Guy to your left has got 40. The guy after him's got nearly about 20. But the blinds are at 80 and 160. So yeah, all relatively okay. It's starting to get a little short stacked or going that way. It's not particularly deep, but it's not, fit or fold or anything at this stage. So you are sitting in the under the gun position, and you have the 10 of clubs, jack of clubs. So first of all, what do we do here? To me, this is 8, 9, 10. It's maybe just about within GTO, or I'm thinking it's just under, and it might actually be a fold.
Yeah, this for me
possibly.
is a bottom of range.
Yeah.
If it's in there, it's bottom of range.
Yeah.
Normally at this level, opening ranges is a bit more important, just because one of the easiest leaks others have is their poor opening range. So opening wide is never an ambition. But it's kind of it's bottom of the range. You're just slightly out, so it's not a huge mistake to.
No, and I think it's worth noting as well. Anything that might be technically just under your opening range for that position, according to GTO, actually, if the table's playing tight, then you adjust and you play that little bit wider. So I'm happy with an open here, which I assume you do, or this would be a very boring hand to talk through.
Yeah, just a quick one in that this was a 6 max, and that probably tells me there weren't many tournaments open that I wanted to play. Because I'm used to it being 9 max or 8 max at worst. So I do sometimes make these slight bottom of range errors when I go down to 6, and I think, well, you've got to play more hands, and it's just they're a little bit blurry. I'm much better at, if this was under the gun 9-handed, this is an easy fold, and I'm not even worried about being close on that. Whereas this was a bit not too sure, you know what I mean? So anyway, I do enter the pot.
Excellent. Okay, and you put 2.1 big blinds in. Happy with that. And what happens?
We get
a caller from the guy to our left, 2 folds, then the small blind calls and the big blind calls. So this is a multi-way pot. I like that because we're about to go and play live in a casino where there'll be at least 15 people in each hand. Okay, if not more. Spectators will be in, everything. Right. Okay, so that's completed.
And I do love how, being under the gun, we've got position on over half the players in this.
That's crazy.
Which is lovely. Anyway.
All right then. So with 9.9 big blinds in the pot, the flop comes down 7 of clubs, 3 of clubs, 8 of spades. So we have the 2 overcards and a gut shot straight. We also have the backdoor club flush, 10 high. And the action, first of all, is on the small blind, who checks. The big blind checks, and the action is on us. So just under 10 big blinds in the pot. We have just under 30 in our stack. What to do? The effective stack, by the way, is 27, which is the small blind. So we're all kind of there or thereabouts. You've got a villain to our left who's in the pot, who's got slightly more, but Yeah, effective stack at 27. So the SPR at the moment is just under 3. Multiway, this doesn't feel like a time to start stabbing at the pot. I would probably check.
Yeah, 100% agree. My main line of thinking, my main line of thinking in this point is the last thing I want to do is open it up to check raises from the small and big blinds. And considering they've just limped in because they're getting the odds with 2 players coming in with a much wider range, you've got to imagine they've got some part of that board. So I don't yeah.
7 and 80 kind of, yeah. That's
people.
it's a part of their range, isn't it? They've got a wide range, so it could well have missed, but 7s and 8s are in their range, aren't they?
And just to give it a further thought on, if we do raise it in this position, the best we could possibly hope for is 2 folds, and then what could we possibly be playing against? Like, you must expect that the villains at least hit a part of that with a decent flush draw, maybe. You know, ace-8 with the ace of clubs in their hands. Even if a 10 comes, like, you'd have to imagine 9 comes, you'd have to imagine you're good, but still, I wouldn't feel an awful lot comfortable if it's the 9 of clubs, for instance. Even that's not that. So,
this is it. I think we just need to play this hand very cautiously, and yeah, let's not bluff, and let's try and see a cheap river. Except, of course, if we hit a straight and the club flush doesn't come in, then try and get all the chips in.
Yeah.
So we do check, and then the person that's in position, the villain in position, he checks. No, he bets 2.8 big blinds. So just over a quarter of the pot. And the small blind, he calls. We get a fold from the big blind, and the action's on us. So there's now just over 15 big blinds in the pot. Still 2 players in there. We've got those 2 overcards, gut shot straight, and the backdoor flush 10 high. Yeah, you know, I would continue.
Implied odds, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to hit a 9, and it can't be the 9 of clubs. So, I mean, it can, but you then don't really want to be going massive anyway. So then your implied odds get shot there. Yeah. All right. No, I'd call though. I'd peel one off. It's cheap enough.
Same. Yep, cheap enough. Getting good odds. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens.
Okay. The board pairs are 7 of hearts on the turn. So the board at the moment is 7 of clubs, 3 of clubs, 8 of spades, 7 of hearts. So nothing's really changed for us at all. Small blind there, checks, actions on us. This to me is just another check. If anyone was going to bet, it should really be the small blind here, having the most 7s in his range.
I mean, he
checked.
There is something to be said about taking a pop here, where the bet from the imposition player is unlikely to be from a 7. You'd imagine on this kind of block that it's got a vague bit of showdown value, and it's from the small blinds and the under the gun, where we're calling with mediocre hands, and that is the mediocre part of the board that's just doubled up. So,
but I'm thinking, how many 7s are in an under the gun opening range? There aren't many. I mean, there's suited like ace 7, maybe king 7.
I do agree, and as much as I don't think the players that I'm playing against here will give that the credit it's due, there's probably a small part of a raising range that's not going to be.
It is a good point. GTO would probably say, no, you've not got many sevens, don't do it. But sometimes it's not all about that. Sometimes it's, well, everyone's just, coolly, limpy, checky. Let's just take a pop, and if no one's got a seven, maybe they'll just go away. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't personally do that. I think I can see that logic, and I have done that before. But I think this is just a check.
Cool. Yeah, but I do check.
You do check, and then the villain to your left checks as well. So we then go to a river, which comes the 10 of hearts. So final board, no flushes came. There's now a potential straight on the board if someone's holding Jack 9 or 9-6. The villain to our left is unlikely to be holding 9-6, but could have Jack 9. Jack 9's perfectly within the small blind range. We've got top pair with a Jack kicker. So is the straight there? It could be, possibly. Would the villain to our left, he raised the flop, didn't he? He bet on the flop. Would he do that if he had Jack 9, if he had a gut shot straight? Possibly so, especially if it was two clubs.
My feelings at this point were, if the villain to our left is playing a gut shot, the 7 that came when it's then checked to them again is not the worst time. I would continue a second barrel. I don't think the 7 changes much of the range. What anyone else that's drawing or anyone else is playing with, I don't know, like a 3, or they've got some kind of gut shot themselves, a small continued bet in that position does ring true with they've got a 7. Oh, look, it just picks up trips. I feel that would actually be the best time for them to play the gut shot rather than wait for this 10. Simply because part of the implied value is that you can push out people on that point, and then if you hit your 10 and you didn't push them out, they've probably got a better hand that's now going to actually call.
I like that thinking. I like that thinking. It kind of does rule out the straight.
I also think the villain to the right of us, the one that would have been in the small blind, it will be absolutely transparent. They would have to bet. They've just seen a check bet, and then 2 passive calls, and then a check. They cannot possibly have hit a straight. I'd even say top pair. I just can't see them having hit that and not needing to bet in this position. I don't know if they're sitting there with an 8 or a 3 or maybe a pair of 6s, something like that, which is kind of floating around the middle, then they might check call. But I cannot think of any value hands that they could possibly have that checks in this position. No. So their action would be really obvious to me. I could be wrong. There might be some things that if they were playing perfectly actually do have an early check. But
you could say that they're waiting for us to bluff and they want to check raise, but this has been way too checky all the way along. Everyone's checking apart from the flop. Everyone's just checking this done. They wouldn't want to risk that. If they're sitting there with a big hand, they're not going to just risk checking and hoping someone raises when actually everyone's just been checking. So yeah, it feels like we've got him beat. All right then, so onto this villain on our left. So when going back pre-flop, we opened and he called from under the gun +1, right? So in my mind, he's got a strong range. He's got a strong range, but he hasn't got a big overpair. He hasn't got jacks, queens, kings, or aces that beat your 10. He hasn't got that. Surely not. That he would have 3-bet. So that's out. So the only ones really to worry about is queen 10, king 10, and possibly ace 10.
I mean, he shouldn't have pocket 10s in his range. He shouldn't have 9s, 8s, and sevens are hard, so I'd forget the sevens.
Mm.
There are pocket sixes that might have wanted to play this way, but we're now beating them for value, so that's never a problem. And all the other smaller pocket pairs, I think, are now that's who we actually want to attack with a small bet if we go anywhere. There are a few hands that I can see the 10 improving, but there's just as many. There's a lot more hands that I feel would have taken that action that wouldn't have checked behind the turn. There's just any of the over pairs just wouldn't have done that. The problem is even the decent drawers should have bet in that position. So I'm really struggling to actually find any hands that they should have in that position. If you're playing a flush draw, a second barrel on the 7, you've got no reason to fear it, and it's actually a good card to represent alongside your flush draw. We block one of the straights, but that would have joined us with our top pairs. So if they have hit that, then it wouldn't have made one bit of difference because they've got a straight.
It feels like we're beating everything here, but that doesn't mean it's time to put money in the pot. I think this is a check call. We check, hope someone takes a stab at the pot, and we call it off.
Of course. So just to give a bit of context, I didn't want to give a spoiler so that Jon comes into the hands fresh, but this hand specifically was me trying to practice what hands on this river are in my value range, what hands are in my bluffing range, and what hands are in my check for showdown range, and then 3 buckets. And if hitting this top pair isn't in my value range, what gets to this point where it's check, call, check, and then
no, it definitely is in your value range, but I just don't think you can extract money by betting.
It wouldn't be in my value range. Like that is it. As in, if this is in my value range, it should bet. There should be some hands here that I bet that go with my bluffs. I need more value hands than bluffs. So I cannot be bluffing in this position if that's my only maneuver, because that would be too obvious. So,
and all right then. So genuine question then, because I just don't know this. Is the definition of it being a value hand that you have to bet? Because in my mind, you can have a hand that you think is ahead and you want to get value, but you get value by checking and calling people's bluffs.
So the value hands you're betting so that worse hands will call. Okay. And then the bluffs you're betting so that better hands will fold. And then the showdown one is somewhere in the middle where it's you're going to lose some, you're going to win some, but betting is unlikely to get called by anything but better hands. So if you feel that this is too risky to bet, it will be because it's in the showdown part of my range.
Yeah, it's more that I think we're going to struggle to get a call from an 8 here. I think we're going to struggle to get a call from an 8 and a 3 with the 2 7s on the board, the 10 on the board. So if we bet, we're only going to get called by like the ace 10, king 10, queen 10, or the straight.
So basically, if I made a bet and I'm aiming it at the 8, so I'm aiming it really low, and I'm talking potentially 2 or 3 big blinds, like really trying to eke out an extra bit of value, knowing that if someone jams or goes crazy over the top, then they've got a better hand and that's it. You can be done with a hand. But I reckon I can target that 8, and I can target a pair of 9s, a pair of 6s, possibly with that tiny bet. So for me, this weren't a matter of should I bet. This was a toss up between how likely is it that the villain behind me who's got the biggest stack, who is the only person to have actively bet post flop in this situation, how likely are they to take a bluff at it? I felt that draws were the biggest part of their range, so that 10's either completed a draw, but much more likely that 10's not done anything and they've missed what would have been their draw. Are they the type of player who will bet their missed draws? And is the risk of getting checked behind and winning the 18 big blinds the same as, is that going to be worth more in the long run than taking a small punt and everyone folds? Is that going to win more in the long run than if I check?
Yeah.
And the times the villain checks behind and the times they do gamble, and it has to be gamble with their worst hand. Do you know what I mean? But they need to have enough hands that they are willing to bluff with, bluff too much if anything, so that I can call it and still win enough of them that it is better than the check.
Yeah, I hear.
It's a bit of a muffled way of saying it, so apologies, but I feel that there is value, but I do feel there's also value in checking, because when the villain bets back at me, I can still call that, and I feel that would actually win more chips in the long run, because I will still win if it goes check.
Yeah.
Whereas if I bet and get free, if I bet and then get raised, I do feel that puts me in a difficult situation.
Yeah, and it goes back to the kind of the plan for the hand at the beginning. Once we hit the flop with 4 players, it's, you're in that multi-way situation, and this is where top pair with a jack kicker, multi-way, with 8, there is a couple of potential straights out there. There's the board's paired. It's not a strong hand. It's okay, but and heads up, in a single raise pot, if you've gone heads up to the flop, it's good. But multi-way, when like someone's dropped out, but there's still 2 other players left in the hand, this is where you've got to downgrade the strength of your hand, because of the number of players, because of the likelihood of there being a better hand.
Of course. No worries. So
we check. Great. I like that. And then the villain to our left, he bets 23 big blinds, which is basically your entire stack. So the pot is 18 and he bets 23 into that, which is roughly 1.3 or something like that. So he's overbet the pot by like 130%. He's gone big. What has he got? What is he doing that with? Right, okay. What does the small blind do, Tain? Is he still in this?
No.
He folds. So it's right. So it's now tournament life decision, pretty much. If we call and lose, we've still got 2.5 big blinds, but that's going to last us like 6 hands.
What? Going back to what the point I was saying earlier, with if we're not value betting in this position with this hand, how many other hands do we have that would have got to this stage, that checked behind the turn? It's not checked behind, checked in the middle. Checked in the middle on the turn. Didn't try to get value. What hands have we got that would do that have got better value than ours at the moment? And that relates to, if this is a value bet from the villain trying to polarize their range, trying to polarize their range, trying to say, I've either got the very best of it or worst of it. What could possibly call them that I could hold? Which makes and it just, if they feel that I've got strong enough hands to call them, then this makes sense as a value bet. But I feel that they should be struggling to name hands as much as we're struggling to name hands.
Definitely. So, all right, let's consider he's got Jack 9 for a moment. Okay. So he's got Jack 9 on the flop. He's got a gut shot. He's bet it. he's got two callers. The turn comes, doesn't change anything. It's the board's paired. He decides to not then play, but then lucky him, the river comes and it's the 10. He's now got not quite the nuts, but near enough to it. It's a nutty hand. Yeah, I mean, what would he be putting us on that he thinks we could call for our tournament life? It would be it's a crazy big bet. It's too big. It's too big. If he thinks we might have spiked to 10, he would obviously he might want to try and put in half the pot, 3/4 of the pot. We might consider it. Tournament life, don't think so. So he's not. What's the value target here? What hand is he targeting of ours that he thinks, the weakest hand we would call with? Well, we opened under the gun. We don't have a lot of sevens, threes, or eights. We've got tens in it. We've got some tens in our range. And I suppose obviously, we've got suited 7 threes and 8s.
Yeah,
you know what? It doesn't really make sense. It's not a coherent story. It is my main thing. It's like, what are you representing here, bud? Like, you're representing a straight, are you? Or representing a 7, like a trip 7s that you checked on the turn when there's 2 clubs on the board? I don't think you would do that. I think that would be risky in a multi-way pot. The people that have come along after a bet on the flop, there's a strongish likelihood one of those people that come along has got 2 clubs. Would you give them a free card if you have a set of if you had trip 7s on the turn? Don't think so. So it just leaves he's repping the straights. That's all he's. Just feels like that's all he's repping. I mean, the only other thing is, the only one thing I can imagine him actually having is if he had pocket 3s or pocket 8s and he flopped a set that turned into a full house on the turn, which was then so big a monster that he opted to check it, so that hoping a flush would come in, because he's like, well, I'm in a multi-way pot, someone's maybe chasing a flush. You get hit that big a monster that would still beat the flush, then you might be like, you know what, I'm gonna see the river, hope a club comes and someone makes their flush and then get him in. The flush doesn't come, and then he's like, so I'm gonna bet big anyway. But it's just not a good story he's telling. And if this is a genuine value bet because he's got a monster, I don't think he's value targeting very well.
Yeah, the only hands I thought he could possibly have is what you said. Is the ones that had us massively dominated all along. Ace 10, King 10, Queen 10. All of them could play this way, especially if he's got, for instance, like the ace or king of clubs, where you're blocking enough for the flushes that you're not overly worried. If you do check behind on the turn, see what the action is. But for exactly the reason that they are possible stronger hands that they've got, they make no sense to do that so at bet size, because you're now putting us in a position where we're having to work out, is this a call or not? Because it's an overbet, so it should be a tough call. But the truth is, you just would never do that. Why would you want to fold out the hands that you dominate? You want to make this attractive to them, and you want to make an 8 someone who's going to call you, someone who's got a 3, someone who's got an ace and thinks, oh, I've only got an ace, but you never know. Let's just give it some light. This is literally getting called by nothing but better.
He knows we haven't got a super strong hand because we checked the turn.
Yeah.
And then we've checked the river. He knows we haven't got if he's got a monster, he knows we haven't got a set of 7s or like the low straight when he's got the high one. He knows that because we've checked the turn and checked the river. He knows that. So this big bet just seems way out of line. It just seems like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
I would have to call it off because I would call it off. Partly because I would just need to see, but also I think when it doesn't make sense that much, it's usually because it doesn't make sense and it hasn't got sense to it. It's just everyone's checking. I can probably take this down with a silly big bet. I would call it off. Yeah. What
Cool.
you do?
Yeah, I mean, I went through exactly the same process. I was inclined to call it. I checked with the intention of pushing, hoping that they took a punt at it. And when I saw the overbet, I did just think I can't put you on any value hands that would make that move. So yeah,
It's a good point. It's a good point. We've checked with the plan to call, hoping to keep the bluffs in. We've checked. We've now got this, nonsensical over bet. We can't then change the plan. Oh no, it's too big. We're going to fold. No, this is what we wanted. We just need to grow a pair and call it.
Just one tiny little bit of additional thought. Are you sticking the other 2.5 big blinds in? Because that a call and loss would leave us with just 2.5.
I would call it, because if you put it feels like a non-point, but it's not really. If you put an extra 2.5 in, he's calling that no matter what anyway. Yeah, I suppose in that sense, I don't think it makes much difference. I would maybe leave it just on the off chance that this is just a badly played monster hand that you're up against and you're going to lose. At least that way you've got but it's squeaking a tiny bit of extra value. Yeah. And although we're calling it, we're not just like really confidently like, yeah, we've definitely got you beat. So in that respect, let's play this like a condensed range and just call it.
Yeah, no, I was always playing this as a value. So
yeah, fair enough.
Jamboree. The question is, did they then fold?
No way.
2.5 into a 67.
I mean, if that is the outcome of this, I'll actually be disappointed. Okay, so he calls. So a final pot of 69.5 big blinds. We are all in for our tournament life. The board is 7 of clubs, 3 of clubs, 8 of spades, 7 of hearts, 10 of hearts. So no flushes on the board.
Most likely hand?
Most likely hand, I'm going to go with... either King Jack with a club. No, let's go with that. I'm going to go with King Jack with a club.
Let's do it.
Oh my God! King Jack of clubs. Now that sounds like I made that up, but that was a pretty good guess. Wow.
Yeah.
King Jack of clubs.
So they were massive right until the river, and then chose the complete wrong time to bluff and the complete wrong bet size.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really chuffed with my read there to get very, very close to what he actually held. But it kind of makes sense because it has to miss the board in the most part. Yeah. He obviously had the flush draw, but that kind of is why he would have bet the flop and maybe check the turn. 2 overcards. That kind of holding would be a call from under the gun +1, not necessarily quite a 3 bet. Yeah, mate. Well, I'm very that's a pat on the back for me for getting that so close. That's crazy.
And we really aligned on a lot of what we said there. There was no
big time
disagreement. I did every action that you said you did. I did try to push us down different parts of the game tree just to get your thoughts on it, but the truth was, like, I played this exactly how you would. Quality.
Excellent hand. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely buzzing about guessing that so close.
Took me up to 70 big blinds. Mate, and then I was looking through my hand histories and I lost almost all of it about 2 hands later.
I was going to say how'd you get on, but it didn't work out well then.
I can't remember how I did in the tournament, but I was toying with this hand and another hand on how I played. One that I won, one that I lost. fast, and they were just a couple of hands between each other because I started it with 69 and a half. No, it was like a big blind just hang short, so I folded a few hands, and then I think one of the people who won the hand previously was 45, 50 big blinds up to that point, and I played pretty poorly. But yeah, no, it's for the time being, this was a good hand. Chip leader at the table.
Love the hand, man. Yeah, great one. Thanks for sharing, Tain.
That's all right. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts. It's always great. It's always a learning experience. I just like that what we're learning is the finer details now.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, it's all good. Hopefully this puts us in good stead tomorrow night. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening in, everyone who's listening. We hope you enjoyed the hand, and we will see you again next week.
Take it easy. Cheers.